Howdy, it's Jim Morado in Bardstown, Kentucky. Actually, as you can see by that green sign, we are driving towards Bardstown, Kentucky, and we'll be there here in a minute or two. And I recorded this back around August, I think early August of this year, 2020. Bardstown's just a nice little town to go to, when you're sitting around on a weekend going, let's go somewhere nice. It's just a very pleasant town with lots of nice little shops, lots of history, and we like it a lot. And I just wanted to put a short video up here. It was named one of America's most beautiful small towns at one point, I think in 2012. They used to have, I don't know if they still do or not, but the post office used to have a special postmark bragging about that. I got one at one point, but I thought that was pretty cool. And just looking at the Wikipedia entry, it mentions Bardstown is in Nelson County. The population was 11,700 as of 2010. It's named for the pioneering Bard brothers. According to Wikipedia, it was originally charted as Bardstown, 1788, and has been known as Bardstown. I know there's a few other interesting bits I wanted to mention. And it was incorporated by the State Assembly in 1838. And at that time, it was part of Nelson County, Virginia, reflecting the westward migration of Americans over the Blue Ridge after the Revolutionary War. Bardstown was also the first center of Catholicism west of the Appalachian Mountains and the original western frontier territories of the United States. And it goes on, the Diocese of Bardstown was established on February 8, 1808 by Pope Pius VII. Oh, and it mentions the Old Talbot Tavern. We'll talk a little bit about the Old Talbot Tavern later. But it was built in 1779 and located just off Courthouse Square in the center of Bardstown. Several notable Americans passed through the tavern's doors, including Daniel Boone and Abraham Lincoln. Bullet holes upstairs have been attributed to Jesse James, and people claim to see ghosts at the Talbot Tavern. I spent the night there. I'll tell you more about that a little bit later. It's also the site of my old Kentucky home state park. Judge John Rowan and his wife, Ann Lytle Rowan, commissioned the construction of a large mansion they named Federal Hill, which is the farm that inspired Rowan's cousin's Stephen Foster's song, My Old Kentucky Home. And that was on the back of the quarter back in 2002. And we will not get into controversial lyrics in that song that have been changed over the years. It's still a song a lot of Kentuckians, myself included, love. Several distilleries operate in and around Bardstown, including Jim Beam, Heaven Hill, Barton 1792, Lux Row Distillers, and Maker's Mark. I've toured most of those myself. Not a drinker, but I do enjoy, taking the tours of the distilleries. I'll sample bourbon sometimes. I'll have the occasional bourbon ball, though I do enjoy eating a nice bourbon ball. Yeah, that's kind of the basics on Bardstown. Yeah, they do perform the Stephen Foster Story, an outdoor musical, each year. I've never been to that. I need to. Also, Wickland is a private residence that has been the home of 3 governors of Kentucky and is open for public tours. We'll drive by there a little bit later. They weren't doing tours the day we were there. And my Old Kentucky Dinner Train is also in Bardstown, which is kind of a big deal. I haven't been to that in Bardstown. I know Lexington used to have a dinner train, and I did do that, and that was a lot of fun. I do need to do the one here in Bardstown sometime. And we're about to go up towards, this is basically kind of a roundabout. This is the center of town. This is what I think of as the main part of Bardstown. It's a nice little visitor center inside there, little community building. They're always helpful. There's always helpful people in there, and there's brochures. They'll tell you what you need to do in town. There's the Old Talbot Tavern right there. And we're just going in circles, but I wanted to mention that. And I hope you don't mind. There are there's a lot of historic markers around town, and I just wanted to mention those because they're very interesting and they kind of sum up all of the history of Bardstown. Oh, and right through here, yeah, this is kind of like their downtown area. There's all sorts of nice little shops through here, and this is just a fun place to go and walk. I've seen a lot of stores come and go, though. I know there was a really nice little cupcake store here for a while I liked. There's a bookstore, lots of other just general stores here that are just fun to go to. And I mentioned the historic markers earlier. There are a ton of your standard, historic markers around town. A lot of them relating to the Civil War too, which I think is really cool. But around this area, they actually have one that kind of sums everything up with Bardstown and the Civil War, and I just wanted to read it real quick. And it's a local one. It's not the roadside ones. It's a local one that they have put out. And it says, "The Great Raid, July 5th through 6th, 1863. Captain Ralph Sheldon, leading several hundred Confederates of Company C, 2nd Kentucky Cavalry, descended on Bardstown on Sunday morning, July 5th, 1863. They drove the handful of Union troops occupying Bardstown into a livery stable 2 blocks north of the courthouse. Lieutenant Thomas W. Sullivan of the 4th U.S. Cavalry took up position in the livery stable and defended it for several hours against the attacking Confederates. After the initial assault, Captain Sheldon demanded the Union troops surrender. Lieutenant Sullivan rejected the demand, and the battle resumed and continued all evening. To prevent the trapped Union soldiers from escaping, Captain Sheldon had his men stretch ropes across the street. The Confederates even tried to set the stable on fire, all to no avail. The Union soldiers put out the fire and continued to resist the Confederates. Just before daylight on Monday morning, July 6, 1863, General John Hunt Morgan arrived from Springfield. Captain Sheldon was sent into the stable again, demanding that the Union troops surrender. Sheldon flatly told the lieutenant, "If you refuse, we will blow you to hell with our artillery." Sullivan replied, "I am obliged to the general's kind intentions, but it is our duty to trouble him a little longer." After the Confederates left, small arms fire began. Finally, the Union sentinels reported to Lieutenant Sullivan that the streets outside were filled with Confederates, and the 4 artillery pieces were in position to fire on their livery stable. At this point, Lieutenant Sullivan knew his situation was hopeless. Carrying a flag of truce, Sullivan emerged from the building. Colonel Richard Morgan immediately rebuffed him. "Go back, you have already refused these terms twice. You have no right to demand them now." With no other choice, Sullivan returned to the stable and prepared for the Confederate attack. Morgan then sent in a flag of truce, demanded that the Federals unconditionally surrender, which they did. General Morgan fussed after the soldiers had filed away. "You 25 damn Yankees have cost me 24 hours. Shortly afterward, about 10 a.m., Morgan's command left Bardstown on the Shepherdsville Road, heading northwest toward the Ohio River. And that picture I took is a little dirty there, but it's I was able to read it. And there is a historic marker about the one-room schoolhouse there that you can read if you'd like. Like I said, lots of history around here, and just lots of pretty cool stuff to see. I wanted to mention, too, as we've driven around, and we'll drive around some more downtown Bardstown, there are historic markers basically for just about every building in town, and they all give me goosebumps, and I wanted to maybe read a couple for you. Yeah, there's some nice storefronts for you, and we're going to see a little farmer's market here in a moment. But I just wanted to read a couple of these little markers that are on some of the buildings in downtown Bardstown that you can go see yourself if you'd like. And it says Beals Row, 1810 to 1845. Developed by Samuel Beal, son of Walter Beal, who made the first lot and street addition to Bardstown's original plan in 1845. South along 3rd Street, held a solid half block of brick storehouses stretching to Raspberry Alley. This corner building was Samuel Bill's own store, operated as Bill and Baldwin, facing the Public Market House in the center of Old Arch Street, to the north, now Flaggett Avenue. After 1840, I believe 5, this was the corner drugstore that continued in the same space until 1984, 2 doors south on 3rd Street, about 1880. Tailor John Talbot claimed he was robbed in his shop by Frank and Jesse James. Talbot had bought the shop in 1876 from William and Arthur Russell, Bardstown jewelers and silversmiths. The James brothers may have intended to rob the jewelry store and been surprised to find the tailor shop in its place. No one recorded what was taken during the surprise visit by the outlaws. Perhaps they left better dressed for the effort, if nothing else. Bill's Corner Store survives as one of the oldest commercial brick storehouses in all of Bardstown's business history. Oh yeah, we're going by Wickland right there that I mentioned earlier. Wickland. It looks like a neat place. I'm going to have to go when they are doing tours. They were not doing tours while we were there that particular day. And before the video runs out, I did want to mention at least one other sign in downtown Bardstown. Spalding and Sons, established 1856. W.T. Spalding established this dry goods retail store before the Civil War. It is still operated by the same family and remains one of the oldest commercial clothing stores of this type in all of Kentucky. Under T.A. Spalding, the business expanded in the 20th century with a new facade added to the old building about 1923, with the latest developments in show windows and transom glass for the modern department store operation. The men's store expansion was made to the north side about 1847. How freaking cool is that? And there's several others. There were a couple of others I was thinking about reading, but go to Bardstown and read those. Just walk down that street and look for the little historic signs. And just for the heck of it, we're walking around that little public building where I mentioned earlier. This is the center of Bardstown. This is every travel magazine pretty much has this building that's to my left as we curve around it on the cover. It's a pretty building. It's right in the center of everything, and like I said, it's kind of a little tourist visitor center, and they've got lots of brochures and magazines and always have helpful people talking about what's going on in town. And it's just a nice little place. We always stop by. Wanted to mention Talbot Tavern real quick too before we get out of here. I've put some pictures at the end just to give you a rough idea about Talbot Tavern. It's been there, old Talbot Tavern. It's been there since 1779, I believe I mentioned earlier. And I've stayed there. I've eaten there. I've met friends there. We're there several times a year, just to go. They have good food. I really enjoy their restaurant, and their prices are very reasonable, especially for a nice old historic place that has unique food. The food's good. I always get burgoo there. I love burgoo. My granddad used to make burgoo. I can talk about burgoo all day long. The Old Talbot Tavern is the farthest east you can go in Kentucky, in my opinion, and still get good Western Kentucky burgoo. They know what they're doing. I've had burgoo at Boone Tavern and the Horse Park and other spots in central and eastern Kentucky. Those are all places. I love Boone Tavern. What they serve as burgoo is not burgoo. It's good. You should get it. If you go there, order their burgoo. You'll enjoy it. But it is not burgoo like you get if you go into Western Kentucky. Old Talbot Tavern, to their credit, they know burgoo, and they know good food. This is the area where that little historic marker was earlier. I think that's kind of the stable area related to the Civil War. I just wanted to point that out next to those beautiful horses. There's a daytime shot of Talbot Tavern, which I think is just so pretty. It's so old looking. I believe it was the oldest continuously operating business in America up until they had a fire in the mid-90s, and they had to shut down for a little bit. But they renovated, restored it. It looks great again. I used to... Oh, and there's a good shot of the other side of Talbot Tavern at night. Just a nice... Yeah, I'm happy with that shot. I had a couple friends in the area, and as I traveled back and forth between eastern and western Kentucky, I would meet them at Talbot Tavern, and it was always just a nice little, if I had the time, a nice place to stop for a couple of hours and see friends. Little bar area. They got this great old fireplace. You really feel like old pioneers might come in at any moment and sit down and eat with you. It's just a nice place. We spent the night there once a couple years ago. We've spent the night there a couple times, but once a couple years ago, yeah, there's a upstairs sitting area. Our room was directly over the bar, and they even warned us they were going to have live music. And it was great live music. There was a female country singer. She was good. But during the intermissions, they played a really boomy, heavy on bass rap album, and we were in our room actually enjoying the music from our room. But then the intermissions, our room was thumping. So another shot of the upstairs of Talbot Tavern. Anyway, just wanted to include some pictures from Talbot Tavern, just so you have a rough idea of what it looks like. I need to go down there. I need to go and stay for another weekend in the near future because it's a nice place, lots of history. Oh, and the old Jailer's Inn is right next door too. It's a bed and breakfast in an old jail. They did hangings, public hangings out back of that jail, and I believe for $5 they'll give you a tour. So check that out too. Don't forget the old Jailer's Inn when you're in Bardstown. But go to Bardstown. It's just a nice little town with a lot of history.